So I want to welcome Nolan Thode, who's my hockey analyst, back on the Pagcast for another year. Before we get to all NHL news, I'm going to run over the senior Hayden scores. So earlier this week, or last week, the senior football team lost to Nelson 49-17. That's an 0-1 start to the season. The next game is today against Iroquois Ridge. Unfortunately, it's at Iroquois. The senior girls basketball team lost in heartbreaking fashion, 44-43. 0-1 start to the season. The next game is today after school. It's the home opener, so let's make sure we pack the den. The senior field hockey team won their first two games of a score of 3-0 against Craig Kilberger and 8-0 against Georgetown. Next game is next Monday, where they play Abbey Park and in Nelson. The senior boys volleyball team won their first game against Blakelock of a score of 2-1. The next game is next Tuesday. Pack the den, as it is their home opener. Now, let's move to the NHL news. So, recently, Austin Matthews has been accused with disorderly conduct. The story is about a woman who was getting out of her car at 2 a.m. when Matthews and a group of boys, or group of men, confronted her. The woman said that Matthews was intoxicated, which I feel like will mean that he'll get off scotch-free, because that's what happens in most cases. Yeah. Like, he might face a charge here or there, but it won't be...
Is he 21 now?
Matthews? Mm-hmm. Probably. I'm not sure.
No, he's 22. Okay.
22.
So it's legal for him to be intoxicated.
Yeah.
But I still... It's definitely controversial, and when he's sort of the face of the franchise, like he is for the Leafs, at least it kind of seems that way. And for the American audiences, too, when they think of the Leafs, they think of Austin Matthews.
Well, yeah.
For him to do something like that, it's inappropriate, and especially with the pending... There's a vacancy in the captain spot.
Yeah.
And for him to do something like that, it definitely is a weighing factor on the coaches and everyone else not choosing him as captain.
I think so as well. But let's go back to your captaincy point there. It's really just Captain Underpants at this time.
Yeah. No, and I was at the Leafs game last night, the preseason game. They beat the Habs 3-0.
Wait, who did they have? Because they've been alternating, like, A's. Who's been wearing the A's? Do you know who were...
I knew Muzzin was wearing an A, Tavares was wearing an A, and... I was high up, so I couldn't see. But there's a guy in front of me with a Captain Underpants sign, so...
Oh, that's funny.
It was definitely interesting. I feel like that'll be a theme throughout the season.
Oh, definitely.
Especially when he goes into
like a storyline.
Arenas. Yeah.
Yeah. And then, to end out the story, Matthews pulled down his pants and grabbed his rear end in front of the woman, which I think is hilarious. I was dying laughing telling this story to my mom. I couldn't keep a straight face when telling it. But I think that Spezza would be a good captain. Because he's old. He's only earning a league minimum. He's playing fourth-line minutes. And I feel like that he should deserve the captaincy because it's a young locker room. Mm-hmm. And he could lead the team to, second round success, third round of success, etc.
Yeah, in the game last night, Spezza was playing second-line power play. And he got some good chances. But I feel like stepping into a new locker room to be the captain right away is definitely... something that doesn't happen often, and I feel like they do have that veteran leadership in Tavares. If I was the Leafs, the captain would be Tavares.
Yeah, that's also a good
because he's a guy. He's gonna get you points. He's gonna lead everywhere on the ice. He's a great he's one of the best leaders in the league, just in terms of the example that he sets for his teammates around him. And he's signed for 6 more years, so you have that guaranteed of him being on the team, rather than giving it to Spezza. He's only on a 1-year deal, or giving it to Morgan Riley, another common option. He's only got 2 years left on his deal.
Yeah. And also Tavares has been a captain before.
Yeah,
right. So he's felt the pressure that has come with captaincy, so he knows how to deal with it and how to deal with the media. Because the media, I'm not sure for the New York region, I'm not sure how pressing it is as much as it is with Toronto. But I feel like that maybe he could also be a good captain for the Leafs.
Yeah, he's very good in all his press conferences. Very calm and collective guy.
Yeah, for sure.
That's why he was my favorite player in the NHL for so long. Until he went to the Leafs, he kind of took a hit. Plus, McDavid's just an incredible talent. He's on my favorite team. So it's hard to beat that. But yeah.
So then let's go into more recent news. Actually, this morning, the Habs were shopping Drouin. There's a rumor going around that Drouin is on the trade block, which doesn't surprise me because you have Jake Evans, Ryan Poehling, Nick Suzuki, who are forcing Montreal's hands. And sometimes GMs like this problem. Because you have so much youth coming up in your system that you need to make a move for someone. And maybe they'll go for a defenseman.
Yeah.
And yeah, I feel like that Duran hasn't lived up to his third overall pick.
He was the third overall pick. He played with McKinnon in junior.
Yeah.
I feel like that was a help for a lot of his draft stock. But I think Duran, he's a good, young, speedy player. He's had personality issues before in Tampa Bay. That's why he had the AHL issues. But I think he's a solid young player. But I'm trying to think how much they could get in return. Because if they traded him, it would be his second trade in the last 2 years.
Yeah.
And he, as you said, he really hasn't lived up to that potential. But he still somewhat has it. He's shown flashes.
For sure.
He's had stretches where he's been one of the best players on the Montreal Canadiens.
Yeah.
And he's had stretches where he looks pretty much invisible.
Yeah, he, in the offseason, he trained with one of the coaches, and he went over video of what he was doing well and what he wasn't doing well. Mm-hmm. So that's something to look for in this upcoming season. And also, like, Laine, there's been rumors that he was going to be like shipped to Montreal.
Yeah.
Like Montreal's are being aggressive with him.
Yeah.
But there's nothing coming from that, so I think it's just all baloney.
I feel like Laine would really help the Montreal Canadiens.
Yeah, for sure. But I actually don't want him because he had a terrible end to the season. Like, awesome, it's great, but I think people are getting excited because of the name that he brings. Mm-hmm. Like, they don't take a look at his stats, and the second half of the season was just like terrible.
Mm-hmm. Well, Laine's role is to just go out there and shoot the puck as much as he can, score goals. On Winnipeg, they're more of like he had guys that could feed him on there, and I feel like it's a similar situation in Montreal. Like Montreal, their offense currently, it's good. It has depth.
Mm-hmm.
There's pieces throughout, but there's no real goal scorer. Like you could take offense to that, but I feel like they don't have that
because last year it was goal scoring by committee. Mm-hmm. There was no one that was,
and the power play.
Yeah, exactly. The power play was actually, was it 29th?
Yeah.
Or 30th? Sorry, Nashville was worse.
Mm-hmm.
So I feel like that last year the Habs had scoring by committee, so I don't know if they can repeat it for much longer.
Yeah, well, Gallagher was a 33 goal scorer.
Oh yeah,
which is very impressive. But for him to repeat that, I feel like he can get a similar numbers. But for him, his goals come right in front of the net.
Yeah,
he's kind of that grit guy who will get you those chippy goals, kind of like a Van Riemsdyk, but more of like a skilled, mobile Van Riemsdyk.
Yeah,
but Laine would bring that to them. I do believe that Laine will resign before the season starts in Winnipeg. If not, he'll hold out for a little bit. But I do think that Winnipeg wants to get that contract done.
Then, so you're saying if Laine resigns in Winnipeg, do you think Connor gets traded? Because I feel like if teams want to get rid of this like RFA and like the NHLPA and the NHL wants to get rid of this RFA holdout, one of the 31 teams or 30 teams has to submit an offer sheet to force Winnipeg's hand.
Yeah, well, there's always been rumors, and the only offer sheet that was actually public was the Aho one, signed by the Canadiens. But for the most part, and actually throughout the league, all the RFAs have stayed with their respective teams and re-signed. There's only a few out there. It's Rantanen, Connor, and Laine. Those are the big ones.
Yeah.
I can't think of any other one like right off the top of my head. But I don't know. Connor, he's a good piece, but he's been playing with Scheifele and Wheeler.
Yeah.
So he gets boosted by them. I still feel like he's a very solid player, but I feel like Laine definitely has more value than Kyle Connor does. Julius Honka's the
there's Honka, but actually Honka was also in a trade rumor with Montreal because Montreal does need help on the back end.
Yeah.
So that's why I feel like maybe they should. They did go well in the draft. They drafted, I'm pretty sure, like a couple lefty that are supposed to be good.
Yeah.
So maybe Honka could also step in there like right away to make an impact.
Yeah.
And maybe Drouin could be that one factor to weigh the trade.
Mm-hmm. But Honka's been in a lot of trade rumors because one, he doesn't have a contract.
Yeah.
And two, that Dallas defense is pretty much established.
It is.
To this point, they got Heiskanen and Klingberg, and then they have veteran throughout.
There's nowhere for him to fit.
They signed Andre Sekera in the offseason, which I think is an okay signing.
He's like serviceable.
Mm-hmm. He was okay in Edmonton. He had injury issues, but he's definitely a guy that like you're not upset if he's on the ice and not upset to have on your team. And then they also have like the vets like Polak that need to get minutes as well. So there's not much room for Honka, and for a team like Dallas, they're just looking to get value. He's also been rumored to Pittsburgh as well.
Then let's more RFA news. Tkachuk signed a 3-year bridge deal worth 7 years, $21 million. That becomes the highest paid Flame in franchise history. His stats last year: 34 goals, 43 assists for 77 points in 80 games. Mm-hmm. So, actually, just a quick note here. If Calgary decided to use the qualifying offer on Tkachuk in his last year, they would need to qualify him for $9 million, since that's
the point deal as well. That third year being $9 million makes them is a lot better for the players, because taking a bridge deal, they're going to be RFAs at the end of it as well.
Yeah.
But having that higher salary in the last year requires more money at the end. I feel like 3 years from now, 2 years from now could be interesting. There's never
cap
been
inflation.
There's going to be cap inflation, but there's never been an RFA situation like this. There was like in the middle of the offseason, there was like 12 big name RFAs who could make an impact on the team. But for me personally, Matt Tkachuk, I think 3 years at $7 million. People saying it's an overpayment, but
I don't think it is.
I don't think it's an overpayment. I think it's either exactly at his value, especially when you consider money that other people got.
Yeah.
But it's only a 3-year deal, so it's not too much long-term risk, because he could obviously, he could flush out. This year was kind of like a breakout season, and it'll be interesting to see if he can consistently do that.
Yeah.
But as an Oilers fan, he's an agitator. And very, very, he has such an impact on that Calgary Flames team. And other than that, like, they have Goudreau, Elias Lindholm. Like, those are kind of like smaller guys. So to have a guy like Matt Tkachuk who's skillful but also like a bigger body,
well, yeah, I'm pretty sure that
definitely valuable.
I'm pretty sure that he did make an impact, like, physically in the playoffs.
Yeah.
Although he didn't put up amazing points. I'm pretty sure like 1 point in the 5
reason
games.
they lost to Colorado was they didn't have the size.
Yeah. They need more
and physicality for the playoffs. Playoff atmosphere brings a different kind.
Exactly. That's why they got maybe they got Milan Lucic because of that.
Mm-hmm. I mean, they had James Neal, and he kind of gave that role. But it'll be interesting to see how Lucic does. I'm so happy that he's off the Oilers.
Yeah, dude, that's a great contract that Ken Holland shed. Yeah. So then, actually, I feel like these RFAs that are holding out, they need to surpass their point total, or like get as near their point total, because they're holding out for so longer, meaning like that they have more hype to their name, right?
Well, like last year was such a situation because Nylander held it out until the last second, signed his deal, and then he definitely was not worth his money.
Exactly.
In the time that he played, and that's because he missed time. But it's also just because, I don't know, like I feel like now that Tavares is there, I guess they lost Kadri, which is good for Nylander, but he went from being like a top option 2 seasons ago and being Matthew's wing. He's still going to be Matthew's wing. Matthew had injury issues last season, but Nylander, his value definitely dropped with the more talent being brought in. Same with Kadri. That's why they had to ship him off, because he went from a 30-goal scorer to like 16 goals. It just wasn't as valuable to the team.
Then we actually have a trade. St. Louis acquires Justin Falk and a 2025th round pick from Carolina for Joel Edmondson, Dominic Buck, and a 2021 7th round pick. So St. Louis has a plethora of right shot defensemen. So what's like the situation there? Because
they have a really solid defensive core.
Yeah, Pietrangelo could possibly be on his way out because he's wanting to a lot of money after his years that he's been there.
Yeah.
So that could trade. St. Louis could trade him. That's what I'm thinking.
There could be a downward spiral of that, but just touching on the trade, I feel like a lot of people are saying St. Louis won this by a mile.
I think it's fair.
I think it's a fair deal. I think both teams get what they want. Yeah. Justin Falk, he's seen as this coveted like offensive defenseman because he was on the trade market. But for Carolina, their defensive core was so stacked that he kind of like he was on the first line power play, but otherwise he kind of like was hidden, and he's making 6.5 for 30 points. Yeah, and then they also signed him to a 7-year deal. He was a 7-year contract, 45.5. Yeah, I that term. Like 7-year contracts, unless it's a player coming out of their entry level deal, it's so risky.
It is.
Like Tavares is going to be making 11 mil as he's 34 years old. Like I'm saying, he's a phenomenal player, but those long term deals have long term risk. As like you can look at the Minnesota Wild, Zach Parise and Ryan Suter. They're going to be making millions of dollars when they're 40. Same with Spurgeon. Spurgeon got a 7-year deal, which was very surprising.
I thought it was surprising.
It kicks him when he's 30.
Yeah, exactly. Next year.
I wouldn't sign a 30-year-old to a 7-year deal.
No.
Even if he was the best player in the league.
Yep. So then Braden Point ended his holdout. That was kind of surprising to me because all I was hearing from Friedman and Dreger was that like no one was close.
It really went from they're nowhere near a deal to in that one
split second
he signs. And I think that's a big help for the Tampa Bay Lightning.
That does help them. 3 years at 6.75, which is kind of crappy because I thought that he could sign that in July.
Yeah. I mean, the holdout definitely... I feel like all the holdouts, they were waiting on Marner.
You think so?
Because, well, that's what a lot of analysts are saying, but I kind of agree, because Marner was the biggest name, and the way that the Marner situation and Nylander situation, they've been able to manipulate Dubas to eventually get the contract that they want. So other players, and what surprised me is that Marner signed for close to $11 million.
Yeah.
And then after then, a lot of team-friendly deals came out. Like Charlie McAvoy making $4.9, like Werenski making $5. Like, those are nice deals that help the team, because then you have money in other places. And especially Braden Point, I thought he was going to get a similar value to Marner. But obviously, it's a 3-year deal, so he's getting half the term.
Yeah.
But in this, I feel like 3 years is perfect, because they have, in the next 3 years, that's a window. They pretty much have all their core locked up.
I don't think we should typically look at the window. I don't think windows really matter, because let's look at St. Louis. They I don't think they really had a window, to be fair, because their goalie situation is almost as bad as Calgary's. And then they bring in this rookie Jordan Binnington, and he plays phenomenal.
Anything could happen out of nowhere. But you got to look at teams like the Leafs. Their window, realistically, in my opinion, is the Tavares contract.
You think so?
After the Tavares contract, they're going to be in a lot of cap issues. Marner, Matthews, Nylander, Riley, Frederik Andersen, in that time, all have expiring deals.
Yeah.
So I feel like the Leafs either need to win it when their young core is still a young core, or it's going to be difficult because they're going to have to lose some pieces.
Yeah, Dubas, the stress just doesn't stop. Like, it keeps going.
Yeah, and people think, like, okay, perfect, we fix our D-core, everything's fine going into the season. They're going to have a good season. Tyson Barrie's on an expiring deal.
Yeah.
Like,
wait, isn't Riley the only signed defenseman past this year?
Tyson Barrie and Jake Muzzin are both expiring defensemen. They lost Jake Gardner.
Well, Jake Gardner went to Carolina, although he rejected Moncho's contract. So Moncho versus Carolina, that would be a really good game because of all the storylines. Sebastian Aho, got signed by Moncho, then Carolina matched it. Then, Jake Gardner snakes Montreal. But the only defenseman that's signed past next year is Morgan Riley.
Yeah, and Cody Cece's making that money. And a lot of them are UFAs.
Yeah.
Besides Schmaltz and Ben Harper. And even then, those aren't guys that are going to attract too much once they're
they're probably going to make like $1 million.
Yeah, exactly.
Maybe even like $900K. Because they're not top players.
And also, as you touched on, the Gardner signing, in connection to the trade, I feel like, obviously, Gardner and Falk, they're two different players. One's a left-handed D, one's a right-handed D. But when you have guys coming in, like they underutilized Dougie Hamilton last year.
Yeah, for sure.
I think he's a solid player. He had like 20 goals.
I don't know what's wrong with him.
And they also have like Slavin, Pesci.
They have a good decor.
They have a great decor, and for them, I feel like bringing in Gardner, he kind of brings the same value to the team that Falk did.
Yeah,
so
for sure.
being able to move him up for a prospect that was drafted in the first round only 2 years ago, I think it's solid for the Hurricanes, and their GM's been doing a really good job.
Yeah.
In his tenure.
Well, let's not forget, like, Point's still going to be out for the start of the season because of his hip surgery.
Yeah, but I feel like it's smart for them, and they're not going to rush him into playing it at all.
I don't think so, because they have such a stacked core.
Last season, what they did was they went for that win record. They played hard until the last game of the season. And they tied the win record.
Oh, they tied it,
They tied it, and then when they got into the playoffs, they were gassed out, and they were playing a team, Columbus, who was hot and just made it into the playoffs, playing off of that energy. And they got swept after being up 3-0 in the first game, too.
Yeah. Then Shabbat signed a 8-year extension that kicks in 2021, worth $8 million a year, so $64 million. And then they're obviously committed to him long-term on the blue.
Yeah.
They could probably build around him there. And then on the offense, they could look to build around Jake Batherson, Kachuk, White, and Brown. So those are still, those are 4 young stars that are going to help the organization.
I think it's going to be, for me, I'm an Oilers fan, so I've had to deal with a lot of, hopefulness, how's this guy going to turn out, having to look at a lot of prospects. Well, Penguins fans, they're kind of just okay, we know our players, they're going to go out and compete this year. They're not too worried about who their 6th round pick is.
Yeah.
You know? But for me, I'm always interested in looking at teams who are in the basement and seeing how they try to build out of it. And I think Ottawa is doing somewhat of a good job.
I think so as well. I think they're very underrated due to their terrible season last year. I feel like they have a really good future.
Yeah.
So then the 8 teams that are looking for a captain. You got Carolina, Detroit, the Rangers, Ottawa, Toronto, Vancouver, and Vegas. Or 7, sorry. So I feel like a candidate for Carolina would be Sebastian Aho.
I could fully see that. He just signed his extension. It was a 5-year deal, correct?
Yeah.
So he's locked up for the next 5 years. I don't know if he was wearing an A or not.
Not sure. But I could definitely see a letter there.
I could see a letter there for sure. But Carolina, like Justin Williams, he wasn't the most skillful guy, but he brought that heart and he brought that leadership. I feel like right now they're maybe looking towards keeping like that older leader because that was kind of like what motivated them. So I feel like
Giordano or no.
Jordan Stahl is a good
candidate
because he's a center. He goes out, he penalty kills, he's on power play, and he's been there for a while too.
He's been there since like the dark days.
Yeah. So I feel like it could go to Jordan Stahl. I could see it going to Aho. I feel like they're going to wait a little bit on the season. But then, obviously, I could see them going out of the blue and giving it to, like, Slavin.
Yeah.
Or even Dougie Hamilton, someone on the blue line. Yeah. But I feel like there's multiple candidates in Carolina, while other teams kind of just have one front runner.
Exactly. Well, then with Detroit, right, there's multiple leaders there. Like, so I'm thinking Dylan Larkin or Anthony Mantha.
Yeah, I think Dylan Larkin is that guy that they would give the captain to. They've been in this weird area over the past 5 years where they had some young pieces coming in and they still had old pieces from the old Detroit teams.
Yeah.
And now that Cronwell's out, it's kind of... And then they still have Jimmy Howard, I guess, but it's kind of like the new age of the Red Wings. And I think Dylan Larkin's the perfect face of the franchise.
Yeah, that's what I'm
thinking.
thinking.
Forward with.
Then with the Rangers, I'd say Kreider. Because I like his intensity during the regular season and during the playoffs.
Kreider's been there for his whole career. He's on a 1-year deal, which makes it interesting. They could give him that captaincy kind of as more incentive to stay in New York, him being that guy that all the other players look up to. But I feel like New York, like Toronto, they brought in guys, but they haven't had a captain in 5 years. I feel like the Rangers could have a similar situation. They kind of just wait because they have young pieces coming up. I could definitely see, like, in a few years, Mika Zibanejad him being that number one center, getting the captaincy. Panarin, maybe. You know,
no, I don't think so.
They're paying him big bucks, but I don't see him as a captain in the NHL. Capo Caco, I could see him being a captain in like 5 years.
Maybe.
But right now, obviously, he's a rookie. He's not that guy for the Rangers. But they have some vet pieces that I could see it going to.
Yeah, for sure. Like, if Lundqvist wasn't a goalie, that'd be automatic choice.
Yeah, no, for sure. Yeah, but you can't get the captain to a goal, unfortunately.
Then for Ottawa, I'd say Pajot, because he's been there when they were good, like during the playoffs, and then like the 1 year when they were 1 goal away from the finals, he was still there. So I feel like he could bring them the playoff success that they miss.
Mm-hmm. I think personal prediction. It's not so much a bold prediction. I think they're not going to have a captain this year, but in 2019-2020, they're going to name Thomas Chabot with his 8-year extension.
Oh, I can see that. Yeah, see, I was thinking the Chabot as well.
Because they have someone on the blue end. But I think their A's are Borechky, Pajot, and then there's a third. I'm not too familiar with all the Senators players, but I could definitely see it going to Chabot a year from now.
Yeah, then with Toronto, like I said, Jason Spezza because of his veteran leadership.
Yeah. For me, I would give it to Tavares, but something just tells me that it's going to go to Matthews just because he's such that star value.
Yeah.
And you see that happen. Like in Edmonton, McDavid, he's the best player, of course.
Yeah.
But is he the best leader? Who knows? I don't know what happens in the locker room.
Yeah.
But there's guys like Nugent Hopkins who have been there longer. Draisaitl's also a good player for leadership. But McDavid got it because he had that star value.
Exactly.
In just his second season.
Like,
he got the C after playing 40 games in the NHL.
Do you think that the value of the captain has been withered over the last years? Mm-hmm. I feel like it has.
Well,
there's no value.
You see some captains, like Crosby. He's a perfect captain. He's what you want. But then other times, I can't think of any off the top of my head, but you just get like a random guy as the captain.
Yeah.
You know? Just like a random guy, but he's the leader to that team. Like in Vegas, also, there was discussion giving it to Derek Englund. He's like a third pairing defenseman.
No, but I
would see.
Yeah, I was thinking about giving it to him. Actually, I was thinking about either Carlson or England. Mm-hmm. I was like England maybe because of leadership, and he's been there since day one. But then you could also say about Carlson. I ultimately chose Carlson because of his star value.
Yeah, and if we're shifting into Vegas, I feel like it's going to be another situation where they hold out for a bit.
Yeah,
because
I feel like
Mark
such
Stone.
a young
I feel
team.
like Mark Stone. It has to be a captain in the NHL at some point in his career. He's just
his takeaways.
He's got that complete game.
Yeah, I know.
He's got that complete game. And for me, like when I do my NHL franchise, I don't make the captain always my best player. I make it the guy who shows great leadership, who's been on my team for a while, signed long term, and also has that skill.
Yeah, exactly.
I like a combination of both. That's why Crosby is a great captain in the NHL.
Yeah. So then for Vancouver, last team, I think it could be JT Miller.
I think JT Miller, the new guy coming in.
Yeah.
I think there's no discussion about Vancouver. Bo Horvat is the next captain.
That's what I was also thinking. But like Miller could bring in that winning culture that he had in Tampa Bay over to Vancouver. Because ever since their 2011 Cup run, they've been a joke.
Yeah, I mean, I can't see it going to anyone else but Bo. He's another complete captain. I feel like in the NHL.
Yeah, so then Brock Besser, actually, luckily we're talking about Vancouver. Brock Besser signed a 3-year bridge deal worth $17.625. Then he hasn't had a healthy season yet, unfortunately.
And he's concussed again.
Yeah, I know, because of a hit that Chris Tierney gave him.
Which has been tough, because for me, I was going to draft Brock Besser in fantasy, but now I'm more weary.
Spoilers!
I know, but because I think that if he did play a healthy season, he could be that goal scorer playing alongside Pettersson too, and whoever that wing is, whether it be Furland or JT Miller, I feel like Brock Besser is going to get all the opportunities in the world to be that goal scorer for Vancouver, what he showed in his rookie season. He showed with more consistency last year, but he just had lots of goals in his rookie season. But now that with concussion issues, he's definitely going to drop in their draft.
Yeah, for sure. Do you think that the hit awarded Chris Tierney a 2-minute minor penalty? Do you think that the ref should have gave Tierney a 5-minute game?
I mean, it's so tough because there's always the awkward hits that they don't look as bad, but then the player ends up getting injured. I think it's preseason hockey. It's a tough call for the refs to make right there, then and there. But I don't know. A 5-minute major in a game is tough to call. Like, unless it's blatant, you know?
Yeah, I know, but then also Oscar Fantenberg. Like, you saw that hit, right?
Yeah.
He got sandwiched, but I feel like there's almost some targeting there that Fantenberg suffered, and he's also in concussion protocol. Mm-hmm. So that's one of their defensemen, right? Yeah, so their young defenseman that is injured. Mm-hmm. And I'm pretty sure he would have started the season.
Mm-hmm. Well, I can't remember what team it was, but the Minnesota Wild, I don't know if it was them, but they were playing a team. I think they were playing Vegas or something, and like 2 players got hit to the head out for like a while.
Yeah.
Like, and it's just, I don't know. The NFL has been good on cracking down on concussions and stuff like that. I feel like the NHL should definitely shift into more of that kind of stuff.
Then something that I found out yesterday is that they don't always use video review in preseason, which I find dumb.
Yeah. Because
the refs haven't refed since June, so there's that 2-month, maybe even 3-month vacancy for some refs. So they obviously need to get on like their work back into the groove of things, and sometimes you can be rusty, which happens sometimes. Let's move on to Travis Konechny.
Touch on this. I feel like Konechny is solid. I feel like he doesn't get a lot of media attention because he plays behind Giroux and Couturier and Voracek, those kind of guys. But I feel like he's a good, solid guy.
He has shown some offensive flair.
Mm-hmm. I feel like, for me, he kind of brings to Philadelphia, and it's not just because they're both number 11, but I feel like he's kind of like a Gallagher type, you know?
Yeah.
And I watched like this mic'd up of the Stadium series, and he was chirping the Penguins and stuff like that. So he definitely...
Those are always some fun videos to watch.
He has passion for the game, and, you know... You want guys like that on your team. Yeah,
and his deal was 6 years, $33 million. Mm-hmm. Moving on to McAvoy, signing a 3-year bridge deal with $14.7.
Yeah.
So McAvoy wants to win a cup as fast as possible.
Yeah.
With their aging core,
he was 1 game away.
And I know, with their aging core, Krejci, Bergeron, Marchand, and Char aren't going to be around much longer. Mm-hmm. So if they don't win a cup in McAvoy's contract, you got to think he'll want to leave.
Yeah. And McAvoy, him taking this bridge deal shows a lot of maturity for someone of his age, because Marner, he's holding out to get all this money. McAvoy signs a team-friendly deal.
Well, they're all team-friendly.
Mm-hmm. For him being able to take that deal, it shows it's very mature of him to take that deal, because then that gives them money to sign more players, because he wants to build a cup-winning team. Yeah. But obviously, the Bruins, as we talked about windows earlier, they got a short-term window. They have aging core, but I do think having McAvoy, Carlo is also very solid, and Pasternak, those 3 players, if you can build around them, I feel like you can have a pretty good team, and I feel like the Bruins are going to be good for a long, long time.
Yeah, I feel so as well. Like, they have their window, I wouldn't say isn't close. I think it would close after Chara would be done, maybe, because I don't know who would step up. Maybe Krug.
Yeah,
I would say Carlo.
Krug as well. He's going to a contract year.
Yeah.
I think Chara, once he's done, Bergeron's the obvious captain.
Yeah, so then let's touch on the Spurgeon contract. That was kind of odd. 7 years, that kicks in next year, 53.025. Minnesota hasn't had that much playoff success.
Mm-hmm. I don't think he's a bad player. I just don't think he's worth that much money. I think
so
it's like the
well.
Kevin Hayes contract.
Yeah.
For me, Kevin Hayes isn't a bad player. I feel like he's going to be solid for Philadelphia. He's just not going to be worth his contract.
No, like it's almost like another version of my contract sucks.
Yeah.
Then there's new rule changes. So there's expanded video review.
Which I think is going to be very solid because there's been so much controversy. Like last year, San Jose in the playoffs.
Yeah, with the hand pass.
You could argue they wouldn't have even made it to the second round.
Yeah,
had they had these rules in now.
Exactly. Then there's ref reviews, meaning that they can challenge or review like major and minor penalties,
which I like.
Yeah, I think so. It's good as well.
It's going to slow down the game because there's going to be a lot of stoppage time. But I feel like in terms of
getting like playoffs, like I'm thinking playoffs and how these will affect. Because, like, that's crunch time, you know?
Because if your team loses due to a missed call, like, it's the worst feeling ever.
Yeah, like Vegas,
it's the worst feeling ever. I mean, they should have killed that penalty. They gave up 4 goals in the 5-minute major. Yeah. But, I like for me, I've known just, like, and from football, too. Like, if my team, like, in the Grey Cup, we won the Grey Cup.
Yeah, Brandon
Hamilton
Bates, 2014.
won the Grey Cup.
And then there's a block in the back.
Which was dumb. It wasn't even worth it. But just losing on a penalty, obviously, I think that penalty in the Grey Cup game was fair. It was a penalty.
But it just broke your heart.
Yeah, but knowing what it feels like to lose because of a penalty sucks. And obviously, the missed call would go the same way.
Yeah,
so I feel like that's going to help.
Yeah, then the face-offs. So the offensive team now gets to choose which side of the ice a face-off will take place after icings or to begin a power play. I'm thinking Washington. Like, Washington can really use this with Ovechkin.
That right side.
Yeah, for sure.
They win the face-off?
D, back to Ovechkin, boom, back of the net, like 7 seconds in.
Yeah, which is very helpful. I feel
like
that's a good
so then line changes. So the defensive team can no longer change if the goalie freezes the puck on a shot from outside the center red line or if any of its players unintentionally dislodges his own net. In both cases, the offensive team gets to choose the face-off dot, which could also be game-breaking.
I feel like this is similar to 2 years ago when they made a rule that you can't call a timeout after an icing. Yeah. Because you can't change your lines after an icing. I feel like that's perfect. Teams should definitely be penalized and keep their tired players out there.
Yeah, exactly.
When there's a situation where their tired players should be out there. And it affects it so much because 2 years ago, the Washington-Toronto first-round series, I was going for Washington, there was a time where Toronto kept icing the puck, and then they took a timeout, and I was like, I wish that there wouldn't, like, they couldn't take a timeout, just because their players were gassed, and you could see it.
Oh, for sure, yeah, because they were hunched over.
But then that timeout just changes it, you know?
Oh, yeah, for sure.
Get that energy back.
But then you lose your timeout for later in the game. So there's also that side to it.
Yeah, but I do like the fact that they can't call the timeout for that.
Then out of bounds, even if the offensive team causes the puck to go out of play on a missed shot or a shot off the post, the ensuing faceoff will now stay in that zone. I don't really like that. I kind of like the old rule where if it touched the
interesting.
If it touched the defensive player in any way, then it would stay in the zone. Because if your offensive team isn't cycling the puck and you're not getting enough shots, you just flip it out of play.
I mean, obviously I don't think that's going to happen, but like, there's definitely been times where like so much is happening, and then a player gets a shot, like a wide open shot, like they've been cycling around and they're so close, and then they hit the crossbar and it goes out of play.
Yeah,
and that's an advantage to them because then they get to stay in the zone rather than moving all the way to the offside dot. But I don't know. There's so many rule changes. I feel like that's more of like a. That's kind of like a they'll test it a bit.
Yeah,
I feel like that's a rule they could go back on if it does have negative impacts in a few years. But for now, I guess it's fine. We'll just see how much of an impact it does have.
Then, with helmets, players now must make a concerted effort to retrieve a dislodged helmet as soon as possible or leave the ice. So they're adopting the double IHF rule, which I think is good.
Which is good. And I didn't know this until I was playing NHL 20, and my player lost his helmet. And he just darted to the bench. I was like, what are you doing?
That's hilarious.
He just darted to the bench when we were on like a 2-on-1. It was awful. And then I knew the rule, but I think it's a good rule.
Yeah.
But I feel like this rule should like. I feel like it should have impact on goalies because there was a situation a couple years ago. I don't know which goalie it was. I feel like it was like Brodeur. I knew it was a Blues goalie or something. They lost their helmet and the play kept going. And they were just yelling at the ref.
Well, that happened in the playoffs, eh? Yeah. With, was it Ben Bishop?
Mm-hmm.
He was down, I think he was injured.
Yeah.
And they scored, which I hated that.
Yeah.
I didn't like that at all. Because the ref needs to know, like, okay, there's an injury, blow the whistle, stop the play. Because he could have got injured and he could have got injured more.
Yeah.
Then the last rule change here in the Hockey News yearbook says the auto goal. So if a goalie dislodges the net on a breakaway, which has happened in like AHL or
the classic situation.
Yeah. It's an automatic goal, is what I'm saying.
Yeah,
which makes sense.
Which I like. I don't know if that's on breakaways only or what.
Well, it just says during a breakaway.
Okay. Well, because I remember there was a situation 2 years ago, America versus. Russia. This was in like the 2014 Olympics or something.
Okay.
And Russia scored from the point, but Jonathan Quick put the net off.
As in, like skated, like
he
pushed
hit
off
with
his leg.
Mm-hmm.
So
and
I don't think that would count as an automatic goal, like in my opinion, because of like that's like incidental.
Yeah.
It's not on purpose.
Yeah, but I mean, I don't know. I feel like there was definitely purpose to that. And goalies aren't dumb.
Yeah.
Sometimes, and I love it. I don't love it, but I enjoy seeing players on the ice when I'm watching a hockey game try to act stupid. Like you knew what you were doing in any given situation, and they try to act like, you know what? I don't know.
Yeah.
I didn't mean to do that.
So then the Hockey News. Let's read their playoff prediction. So in the West, they have Calgary, St. Louis, Vegas, San Jose, Winnipeg, Nashville, Colorado, and Dallas all making the playoffs. To be fair, I don't think Winnipeg will make the playoffs.
Yeah.
They're thinking, or they've already suspended Dustin Byfuglien, which I hate because he's taking a leave from their team. Mm-hmm. So I don't think that Winnipeg will make the playoffs this year because of how their subtractions are going to hurt them. I know they have like Niku coming up, which I've heard like good stuff about him.
Yeah. He's shown flashes of offense, but he doesn't have that defensive consistency that you want, especially in a contending team. Like players like that, like Shabbat, I don't know how good his defensive game is, but because he's on Ottawa, his defensive game isn't really looked at just because they're a bad team. But when you come into a contending team, you need to have all those aspects.
Yeah, that's true because defense do win championships.
Like McAvoy, he stepped in as a rookie and he was fantastic on both ends of the ice.
Yeah. Then on the East. The Hockey News has Tampa, Florida, Toronto, Boston, Washington, New York Islanders, the Hurricanes, and the Flyers. I feel like the Flyers are a surprising team in this prediction.
I feel like the Flyers, they have all the pieces around their roster, up front and defensive core wise, to be a playoff team. But it all depends on Carter Hart. He's a 21-year-old goalie. If he has like a really great season and he's consistent, then I think they could definitely make the playoffs. But he's just so young that you don't know if he starts 50 to 60 games how well he's going to play.
Yeah, also, I think the World Juniors helped his name get more,
for sure. But he was very solid in the WHL and the AHL to some degree.
Yeah.
But now he's definitely made a name for himself. And him being a Canadian goalie and me having those memories of watching him in the World Juniors, I really do hope that he's a successful NHL goalie.
Same. So then
they have the Penguins missing the playoffs.
Yeah, that's true.
I
think they're on their downfall. Like after the second round loss to Washington, like 2 years ago.
What it reminds me so much of is the Blackhawks of 2 years ago.
Yeah.
Before DeBrincat and Strome came in, before those pieces came in, they kind of just had the old aging core, like when they brought back Sod, and they had like Corey Crawford on the back end, and they just missed the playoffs. Like,
I like those memories.
They went from winning the division and then getting swept in the first round by Nashville.
Yeah, now they're not
nothing.
even in the playoffs.
And you think about it, the Penguins got swept in the playoffs last year by the Islanders, and now if Matt Murray's save percentage isn't like a .920 and above, I don't see the Penguins making the playoffs.
I think that like Matt Murray's always been inconsistent after their back-to-back cup win when they won against San Jose.
Yeah.
Like ever since that cup win, he's had a hangover.
Yeah, and they lose Kessel. I think Galchenyuk.
That's a loss of like 70
can be okay.
points. But Galchenyuk's not going to step up and get 70 points.
Yeah, I know for sure. But But people think, no, they're making the playoffs. They're the Penguins. They have Crosby and they have Malkin. The Oilers missed the playoffs last season, and they had 200-point players. They had McDavid and Draisaitl, who were both above 105 points, was Draisaitl's total. But they don't have that defense, and they don't have goaltending consistency.
Yeah.
and they're in a tough division too.
They are.
The Rangers, the Devils, the
like all the Metro got better this year. There's not
Columbus arguably.
Okay,
got
yeah,
worse.
Columbus arguably got worse.
And you could compare Varlamov to Leonard.
Yeah.
For the Islanders, I feel like they stayed a similar team.
I think that Varlamov would lose the starting job. I think it's going to go to Greiss. I think Greiss either beats out Varlamov at the start of the season, or Greiss beats out Varlamov like midway through. Because there's no way I see Varlamov finishing the season as the starter. He's too old. He's too inconsistent.
Yeah, but Greiss is
Grubauer even beat him out for Colorado. I'm pretty sure.
Yeah.
So I think it's just his time as a backup.
Yeah. But, I don't know. The Islanders and Barry Trotz and whoever their goaltending coach is has done a phenomenal job.
Yeah.
They turn, 9-10 goalies into 9-30. Robin Leonard went from being inconsistent on Buffalo to a Vezina candidate.
Exactly.
And I think that's for him. He had a great season, and I'm not discrediting him, but I feel like a lot of that is given credit to the coaching staff around him.
Yeah, and then so the Hockey News has Tampa beating Vegas in 6 games, 42 to win the cup, which isn't that far fetched.
For me, it's such a hard cup to predict.
It is because there's so many good teams.
Because you look at the playoff bracket that they currently have.
Yeah.
I could justify all of those teams winning the cup.
Yeah.
I could justify over half of the league that they could win the cup this season. Mm-hmm. Obviously, there's some teams I would have more faith in Tampa Bay just because of the talent on their roster versus Florida just because they're unproven.
Yeah.
Florida would also be a very interesting situation.
Yeah, I'm actually interested to see how Bob does this year.
Mm-hmm. If Bob is the same, even if a little worse than he was in Columbus, I think Florida's roster is better than Columbus's was.
Well, yeah, for sure.
For years that Bobrovsky carried them, because you have Barkov, Huberdeau, Dadonov, Hoffman, and then they're getting Trocheck back from injury. They have young pieces too, like Frank Vatrano. He's waiting to break out. He's a solid player. Henrik Borgstrom as well. People have talked about him potentially being good. Alexi Heponiemi.
Yep.
He's okay as well. And then their decor as well. Aaron Ekblad's been solid. Number 1 pick. That's questionable. But I feel like, and then they're getting Joel Quenneville as well.
Yeah, for sure.
To be their head coach. I think
Joel Quenneville is such a good coach.
I think Florida's gonna have a great season.
Yeah. Well, that concludes it for this year or this week's podcast.
Cup prediction. Give it to me. Who's winning the cup over who? Before we sign off.
Okay. To be fair, I'm gonna say Tampa. I think because Tampa's been the number 1 pick.
The thing is I want Tampa. I have my grandparents live in Tampa, and I want them because when the Capitals won it, there was a lot of pressure lifted off me, even though I'm not a heavy Capitals fan.
But you want to see Ovechkin, right?
And seeing those teams struggle and having those reputations, for me, I kind of like to see them break out of it. But for me, I don't want to pick the Tampa because I feel like I'm jinxing them, you know?
Yeah, there's always that jinx that can come into mind.
And I think Vegas is good. I think Vegas is good. People are overrating them a bit.
Yeah, I think so as well. I'm pretty sure they're overrating them because of their first year.
Mm-hmm. I think that this season, it's so tough. I'm trying to think of the third team in that. I guess the Pacific's not strong enough.
To be fair, maybe... No, I'm calling it. Sharks are winning the cup.
I'd like to see that.
No, I'm calling Sharks winning the cup in 7 games.
Rides off into the sunset.
I'm calling it Sharks winning the cup 7 games over the Capitals.
Mm-hmm. I think Capitals is a safe pick, and for me, I'm gonna say that the Washington Capitals beat the Dallas Stars in 6 games to win the Stanley Cup.
Well, there you have it. Those are our bold predictions for this year. I'd like to thank Nolan for being my analyst for the last 2 years.
Thanks for having me, Michael.
We'll be probably back, hopefully, to talk about the trade deadline. If not, we'll see you next year. All right. Thank you for watching.